friend and neighbor for all of my 65 years. He was just an ordinary guy to me, and I mean this in the most respectful way. He was proud of his family, his home, his church, his neighborhood, Princeton. My relationship with Coonie, as I called him, started when my dad died at age 11. And I was with Mr. Vaughn and his sons getting wood chips for the horse. And I was whisked into the den where Coonie broke the news to me. It was the first time I ever saw him cry, but not the last. We shared a lot of tears in the last 2 months. He's a man of a few words, and the reason he was called Coonie was that in watching hockey games in the 70s, which was the only sport he watched, they had an announcer, a color man, called Coonie Weiland. And Coonie Weiland would just say things like, "That's right, Bob. Nice hit. Great goal." And that's what Coonie did. That's what Ken would do. We'd sit on the couch and say, "What did you think of that?" I said, "That was good. That was great." So we started calling him Coonie, and I've called him Coonie since I was in 8th grade, I think. And it stuck. A lot of his grandkids call him Coonie. My kids call him Coonie. And he's always Coonie to me. He loved his house in Princeton. He was a simple man as far as that goes. He kept the grounds up beautifully, kept the house up beautifully. He was simple in that he just loved to stay home and work around the house. They didn't take any extravagant vacations, well, maybe 1 or 2, but he was a great friend and he was a good neighbor. My dad used to chide him about keeping his lawn up and saying, "Ken, we don't want the property values to go down." And he'd just laugh because our house looked like hell and his house my mother had a little bit to do with them coming to Princeton too, and that when they first came out to town, Glad was adamant about there being children in the neighborhood, and so there were two kids at my house at the time, or 3 actually, and there were kids up and down the street, and Ken said, "It's Incubator Alley, Gladys. We're moving here." So they moved to Princeton and raised the 3 boys. He was, as you know, he was somewhat of an orphan and lived on farms, and it's where he, developed his love of animals. So Corky was the first animal he had, a horse that we all took care of, and he loved very dearly. And then he moved to chickens, and then after retirement, he went into I don't want to say dairy farming, but he raised 3 cows, Misty, Dolly, and Susie, and he would just raise them until they were ready to calve and save the calf and send the horse off to milk. So he never really milked the cows, but it was really interesting to see him in the backyard playing with a cow as if it was a dog. And this is like a 350-pound calf. He also liked to garden. That faded when Glad passed away, but we used to get all the stuff we needed from Ken. Squash, tomatoes, everything, cucumbers. He was a great gardener, and he gave that up probably in his 80s. He was also very fond of blueberries and blueberry buckle, and we would go pick blueberries with Ken, and we had this little song we would sing, and it went like this. Ho, 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 here we go, up brown hill, do not spill your blueberries. Anyway, that was blueberry buckle. Glad made probably the best blueberry buckle back in the day. I've got notes here, but Christmas decorations. We had a Christmas decoration contest at one time.
Every year we had a Christmas decoration.
Yeah, well, for a while, but Glenn made him a sleigh and reindeer out of wood, and he put it in the front yard, and he was going to win the competition that year. It was a beautiful thing. Until my dog went up and relieved himself on it in the snow, so there was yellow snow. So that came down, and we declared ourselves the winner. And he didn't care. Over the past 30 years, he's taught me a lot. We were always working on something together. He kept his basement area just perfectly immaculate, but if he He, because I took it over. He loved his John Deere mower. We used to accuse him of just trying to catch the leaves as they fell, because he was always driving around in circles. He had some Coonie-isms, as Jess and I call them. And one of them was, well, what would the smart guy do? And he used to ask me that all the time whenever I had a problem. He'd say, what would the smart guy do? And another one we shared, because I did a lot of work around my house and his house recently, but a little putty, a little paint, make it look like what it ain't. It's one of our favorites. Gladys was the love of his life, and her passing was a devastating blow to us back in '95. Fortunately, Bee came out to the country shortly after the additional loss of Dory, and a sense of normalcy returned. We've come to love you, Bee, very dearly. We love your presence in our lives. It's a gift from God. You have been phenomenal. You're truly a saint. We can't thank you enough for the impact you've had on everybody. Not just Coonie, but my girls, my wife, everybody. From when Olivia was baptized, and it was late because we weren't sure we were going to stay Catholic. But anyway, she was a little girl, and we're up on the altar, and Coonie and Bee came in, and Olivia just pointed and said, "Cuckoo Bee, cuckoo Bee." She loved him so much. Anyway, the last thing I want to just say is that for years I was involved in the Memorial Day Parade in Princeton, and I had to get people to be the grand marshals and things like that. And I asked Coonie and Roger to be in the parade. And both of them said, if he'll do it, I'll do it. So I lied to them and said that each would, and got them to be part of our parade. And I rode with Coonie and Roger in a bright red convertible a number of times, part of the greatest generation. Never really talked about their war efforts or how much they missed being away those 4 years. But one year at the Commons, our friend down the street had a guest speaker from Fort Hood come out, and a friend of his from college. And he said that World War II veterans were just ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And Ken Vaughn, in his simple way, was truly extraordinary. While we say goodbye to Coonie, he'll always be extraordinary. Extraordinary to all of us. Thanks.